Welcome to the Brie Pod. I'm here with Carly Hamilton Jones, life coach and business coach. Hi, Carly.
Hi, Brianna. How are you?
Good. So I wanted to share a little bit before we start about how we first met. I remember back, it was like around one of the Thanksgivings I was at, and I was talking to one of Jeremy's aunts, and I feel like I had an emotional breakdown on her all at once. I still feel bad to this day because I remember sitting across from her and I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. Where's my life taking me? Uh, and she really all of his family and my family are all very supportive and sweet. And she was like, I have somebody that maybe you can speak to and help you and on your path of finding yourself. And at that time, it was definitely a bit of life, but also career wise because it was my photography business. And then I was led to you. Uh, so I wanted you to share, how did you get into life and business coaching?
How long ago was that? Do you remember? Was it
Oh,
3 years ago? Four
I
years? It starts to blend in.
yeah,
You were
I
one of my very first clients.
um I want to say, but I don't know if this is accurate, but I want to say maybe 2017-ish, maybe because it's still the beginning of my relationship with Jeremy, or maybe the beginning of my marriage with Jeremy, one of the two.
Okay. Oh, so long ago, yet so not long ago. Okay. So okay. So to start I can kind of go back a little ways, but I was always interested in business. But I went and got my undergrad in psychology and business and really wanted to do something in the business field. So I ended up becoming a human resources person and corporate finance in Boston, Massachusetts, worked at 60 State Street. I worked my way up from like a temp representative, and then I ended up becoming a corporate recruiter, and I left there. My husband and I traveled across country through Europe for 4 months. I came back. I got a job as a corporate recruiter in a PR firm, super fun, in the Prudential Center. And I was doing really well. And I decided in like the heart of the job market when it was like in its frenzy and it was so fun and I was making so much money. I just, I don't even know how it happened, but I decided I want to go get my master's in counseling and do something more meaningful. So I knew I did not want to be in schools, but somehow in my 20-year-old brain, I went and got a master's in school counseling. So I realized it, I think, at the end of when we graduated. I'm like, well, everybody here is like so excited to be a school counselor, and I did not want to do that at all. But I ended up randomly serendipitously finding a school counseling job right in like the beginning of the September. They needed one. I was looking for a job, and so I became a school counselor for 6 years and taught high school teens, whatever. It was really fun. And then I graduated. Then I had my third child, and I decided to resign from school counseling. And I was a stay-at-home mom. It floated in my head on and off, like, what should I do next? But I really busied myself with my kids. And then, like, right before my son went to school, and then after he left for kindergarten, I sat there and I felt so overwhelmed with like wanting to do something and not knowing what, and feeling unworthy and feeling like stressed and anxious, and I wanting to make money so badly at that point, but not wanting to do anything that I didn't want to do. Meanwhile, I had experienced anxiety and a lot of anxiety throughout my entire life and pushed that under the rug. And it was just like bottling up. I never really talked to anybody about it. It kept like morphing into different types of anxiety. I had a fear of fainting, And then that transferred into a fear of driving. And then like in this whole area where my son went to school, it kind of morphed into like a health anxiety. So I was like really always worried about getting sick or my family getting sick. And so I had a lot of work to do in that department. So kind of simultaneously realizing that like I had hit my max in terms of like not feeling in control of my life. And I didn't feel like a spark in life. Like I was so on the paper, I looked like I had everything I wanted. I had a good marriage. I had 3 kids, a house in the town I wanted to live in. But like I looked at other people. This is a good segue into like this whole comparison thing too, right? Like I looked at other people on social media and they looked happy. So there was a bit of that, like, wait, what's wrong with me? Like, why aren't I feeling that way? And I didn't like even talk to my closest friends and family really about it because there's shame in feeling it and not knowing where it stems from. So I started working on that through my primary care physician. She was super helpful and gave me tips. And then I started doing some biofeedback. And I finally got a coach in emotional freedom technique. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but it's kind of like tapping. You tap your pressure points and kind of releases your emotional charge. So I did all that. And then in that time, I decided to become a coach and I got my certificate. And then I spent the last 4 years building my business and serving women and men. And yeah.
Oh, I think that's awesome. Especially that you shared that, because it's kind of funny because when we started at the beginning, I was talking about how I had like my emotional and
Yeah.
it's interesting to see it from your point of view and what you did with it from that point. And how do you feel now about the like? I know you said before you felt like you just you look good on paper, but how do you feel now? Do you feel like you found your calling?
Oh, yes, totally. Well, and I knew even though I had felt like I found like my calling, like I knew I was somehow doing with like serving people and helping people, but also the business side. I've learned through the work that I've done how to create my own results in terms of like happiness and feeling good through my own thoughts and intuition. So it wasn't like now I have a piece of paper, I'm doing, I'm living my like calling. It's the journey to get there that really is the part that creates change.
I think that's great. And I feel like with your help, I learned so much, and I feel like even though I didn't go necessarily on the path that I thought I would be going on, I still feel like you helped me so much in just kind of looking at the because we're going to be speaking about comparison, but even comparison with yourself and comparison of like what the inner person is saying to myself versus what the outer should be saying to myself.
Yeah, so good. Like the inner critic, right? The brain. It's like
Yes.
the brain, comparing the brain and the brain's thoughts to what we feel inside. Yes. Hey,
Yeah.
it's been 4 years. I could go a lot deeper with you now, girl.
That's true.
So much more.
uh, um, that now I wanted to talk about comparison, but because you are also into the business aspect, I actually wouldn't mind if you brought in comparison on the level of life and then comparison on the level of business and how, because I know that many people that are just starting a business that are listening to this don't start it because they're like, well, this girl's doing better than me, so never mind, or this guy's, further than I am. So, I guess let's talk about comparison with life and business.
Well, it's easy because it's all related, right?
Yes.
Because I really think of business as an extension of ourselves and I like to merge the two as much as possible because it is, right? Especially if we're entrepreneurs, anyone who wants to start a business is an entrepreneur and there is no like clear lines. So the comparison piece, oh, there's so much, right? Like it would be easy for me to say, just put your blinders on and stay focused. But and that's the answer, right? But it doesn't happen that way as smoothly as that often because our brain likes to tell us stories about, not being good enough, not doing it the right way, not being perfect. We won't be able to do it that way. It's not possible, really looking at all of the negative. So our brain has a negativity bias, which creates a situation where we're always looking at what's not working, or often looking at what's not working, what's going wrong, including in ourselves and our businesses. So number one, seeing that's in separating yourself from that part of you and knowing that it's a human trait. We all have it. It's not personal, even though it feels it, right?
Yeah.
Not personal. It's just our brain's way of keeping us safe and keeping us in our little bubble so that we don't branch out and we don't go move forward, because that's the brain's way back in the day of keeping the cave people safe in their caves so that they didn't get eaten alive by a tiger, right? So stay safe, don't move. So this is our modern way of our brain saying, like, stay safe, don't move, you're not good enough, you're not ready, she's better than you, he's doing it this way, you can't do it.
Yeah. But it's just crazy because as you were talking about that, I'm thinking about how many times I have told myself, well, it's hard to tell which self it is, but I guess the ego maybe that's like, no, don't do it. Don't go after that goal. So comparison is just, I guess it's interesting to me um, because a lot of the times we don't, I guess like because of the safety barrier, we put up a barrier, but a lot of times we don't realize that we're actually very powerful beings.
Mm, yes, that's for sure. And I say this to you, but I still compare. It's a more subtle, oh, it's more of a look at that. I should be doing that, right? So not as much like I'm not going to do it because this person's doing it, but I have that like pull of like switching gears and doing what that person's doing. Or, oh, look, that person's doing like seeing success that way. I should go that way. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? It's like
Yeah,
a
it does.
next level of comparison, kind of.
Yeah. So what do you personally do with yourself when you're in that position?
Awareness is the first step. So I really recognize what I'm doing when I'm doing it. And I look at like my thoughts and my actions in a very metacognitive way now. So I'm always seeing what I'm doing as much as I can, right? And being aware and noticing like why I'm thinking something, why I'm doing it, why I want to go in that direction. So that's huge. I would recommend for anyone. And then secondly, to kind of dig deeper into what it's all about. What is it that you're not trusting inside of you that is making you feel like someone else can do it better? It's this not enough feeling that is very common.
Yeah.
Right? So we're not enough as is. So we have to be better, or we have to do this more. It's like this whole more and better.
Yeah. Um, that outlook can be a very bad road.
Uh, well, it comes down to this feeling of worth,
Yeah.
right? At the deepest level, it's about fear and worth and owning ourselves as is with all of the imperfections and believing that that is the magic, which
Yeah.
takes practice because we're often conditioned to not feel that way.
That's true, especially with like how society portrays what's perfect in whether it's business or body or whatever. So that's true. We have the outside conditions as well. I feel like that cause these, not just cause, but the feeling of that, oh, am I worthy?
Totally. Yes, there's a lot. And then we're always flooded with media in some form. So it takes inner work. So it takes committing for those of your listeners who want to shift this, which, oh, are we going into this advice piece? But like really committing to noticing first and then spending time with a journal or a friend or a coach or whatever, and really digging into the suppressed beliefs that you've carried with you so that you can feel them, feel the emotions, and then move on.
That's, I think that's a good piece for the start of the advice. um, so to go toward that, in from your perspective as a life and business coach, um, what let's say, what advice would you give in someone that maybe is feeling like, oh, I don't know if I should start my business, or I don't know if I should start this passion, and maybe they're thinking, this person's doing better. What advice would you give that person right now?
Well, I would say the one thing that took me longer to sink that that took longer for me to really get, which I don't know why. It's very simple, but I don't know why. It took me a long time on my journey to really let this sink, that like all successful people fail. All successful people go through times that they, feel like they didn't do it right, that they set a goal and didn't achieve it. That is normal. So to normalize that and not let that, like a little blip or a big failure or whatever it is, stop you thinking, and then like the thought spinning that I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, and really, really let that sink in and anchor into the fact that like failure is part of the journey. Because if you are comparing, and this is what this program's all about, usually like you're afraid, right? Like there's that fear in making
Yeah.
a mistake or showing up not in that imperfect way. So like that is part of the process.
And I remember with you, it's like celebrating the imperfect and celebrating those moments that you think you shouldn't be celebrating. So
Yes. And that's the whole part of the brain too, because your job is to retrain your brain to think of positive and possibility and look for evidence that it is working, right? Because our brain wants to go to looking for all the evidence and collecting all of it that's saying like, this can't happen, this won't work, this isn't possible. So shifting that and celebrating is part of it. The small little mini things, everything, celebrating.
that's that's true. It's funny when we talk, I always kind of like have mini movie reels in my head of all these certain times that coincide with what you're saying in my own personal journey of life. But I wanted you also to share not what can, but if they were to come to you or in to be like, hey, you know what, Carly, I need your help. What do you offer to them for business or life coaching?
Well, the first thing I offer is clarity, is to get really clear. A lot of times we're walking around with overwhelm and we have a million thoughts going in and out of our head. We know we want something different, but we're not sure what it is. And we're waiting until that time comes till we figure it out. So I offer support and space around getting super clear on what exactly you want, why you want it, like how you want to feel when you get it, what you want to do when you get it, when you have it, and then working on really transforming that person into that being right now, if that makes sense. So not waiting until they have it all, but working towards that in baby steps, taking action towards the goals, the result that they want, while stepping into that space of being that person they want to be right away.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And that goes with entrepreneurs or non-entrepreneurs, anyone that wants something, get clear on what you want and why you want it, and then step into the way that that's going to make you feel. And that's manifesting anything you want.
Yes, I love manifesting.
It's the best.
Um, so how would one like find like when they're maybe, I don't want to say shopping around is an awful term for this. Like if they're looking for, because I know that with a coach, you want someone that you can also like are compatible with, right? Because you
Yeah.
wouldn't want to work with someone that's like you're not compatible with. So, what are some qualities they could look for in finding their compatible coach? Or
I know, because there are so many out there right now. It really comes down to energy and if you feel, and attracted in a way, right? Through the energy of
yeah,
that person and they're inspired and motivated and excited by that person. That's where you're going to see the most change and transformation. If you can get in and you see that person and go, "Ooh, I want to be like that," right? Not like exactly like that, not in a comparison way, but like I want what she has, and or he has, and just get really excited to be to be mentored by that person.
yeah, I think that's that is also true. And I've always loved your personality. I feel like that you have you had the spunk that I needed at the time that I was at like a, I don't know, I don't want to say like a low, just confused. I was so confused. And when I remember when I believe I called you or someone called somebody, and you just had this really inspiring voice, like "Hi." I'm like, "Oh, cool. This is already a good start." Because just going back to that moment, I just remember being like, "I don't know where I'm going. Can you
Uh,
help me?"
I know. I love doing this so much. I love being able to guide people towards their dreams. And that's essentially what it is seeing what I do is I hold that space and see that future self before my client sees it. And then that's where I'm in the finish line, like rooting for. So, I mean, how fantastic is that, right? Like I get to root for you being done and I see that you've accomplished it. And in my mind's eye, I can see it being done. And so I get my clients to be in that space. So of course it's fun and exciting.
Yes. And I love that really in any stage of your life, even if you feel like you're already maybe on that right path, or maybe you're feeling you're just starting, or maybe you're in the middle, that any time is a good time to have a life and business coach, right?
Yes. Well, okay, what I like to think of it is like anyone who's listening, they can do it on their own, right? It's not like you necessarily need a coach. However, coaches collapse time. So, can take you, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever that is, usually more than 6 months, but like coaches collapse that, so we're doing it a lot faster, and because we're looking at all of those thoughts that a lot of times we don't necessarily see that we're even thinking, and so we catch those really quickly. That's what I do, and I catch them really quickly, and then it allows like that person to feel their feeling and move on, and it just happens at a faster rate.
And you
Yeah.
are very good with accountability. That was one of the things that I needed was because I know that, like you said, we could, I could have taken my little reins and went this way or whatever, but it was the accountability that I was going towards something, because that I didn't give myself. I had excuses of like, I mean, we can wait till tomorrow or we can do this. So I feel like accountability. How do you feel on accountability?
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of my clients have like a people pleasing tendency. And so oftentimes, if they haven't worked with a coach yet, that accountability is so huge because how it's like it can be easier to do something for someone else than it is for yourself. So oftentimes they keep going because they know I'm waiting. Like I do. I have a coach, so I make sure that I get my stuff done when I'm feeling unmotivated, knowing that I have someone to hold me accountable. So yes.
Yes. Accountability. That's one
Yeah,
of
it's
the,
great. Accountability is it's so helpful.
yeah, especially when I was doing I feel like my path with you led me to, working more toward my photography business. I rebuilt a website. Um, maybe I should share a little bit of that. So, a lot of good experiences from you because I ended up coming from a lost and confused place to rebranding, rebuilding a website. Um, I started sharing offers because before I was not all about that life.
Hmm.
I started sharing my photography. And from that point, I think if you look at my Instagram in the beginning and then you look at it now, it was also consistency that I started more with you. And then you inspired me, even though we had started to kind of, and it was the career path that went. I was like, you know what? I should also go and get a fitness coach. Uh, because you showed me how having a coach was so important to have.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate what you have given me, and I hope that anybody listening, does come to you for their life coach or business coach because there's so much that really inspired me. And honestly, I say that there's bits and pieces from people that bring me to where I am today, and you are a portion of that to this podcast. Even if it's not photography, there's still the things that you had me do are still, in my mind, and I like work on them. And then I remember the wolves that you we talked about.
Yeah, I forgot about
So
that. That's great.
yeah, I was listening to Shakira the other day. I've never forgotten about the wolves, but I was listening to She Wolf, and for some reason, back in the day, I always kind of referred to the She Wolf. So it's funny. I listened to that the other day and thought of this.
Oh, I forgot about that memory.
See, but for me, being the, I don't know what I would call myself, like, I don't want to say client per se, but whatever you want to say there. Um, it stuck with me. It's still with me to this day. So your help is still here. Um,
Well,
so with
I love hearing that. Thank you.
uh, yeah. Um, so I guess what this is probably gonna be a two-part question, but what advice would you give for someone um, that is looking? Well, I know we've kind of talked about this, but like, what advice would you give someone looking for a life coach? Like, and then what advice would you give someone that is, yeah, I guess we'll start with the first one.
Um, well, I'm trying to think, like, do you mean like looking as in like, okay, where do I start, right? Because there's so many out there. Um, well, I would go on social media or like if they're on Instagram or Facebook and take a look at anyone that they know. Well, I'm trying to think. It is kind of tricky because there are so many and you don't know. So it comes down to trust. It really does. And it also comes down into what you want, kind of like if you want a life coach versus a business coach. You really just check it out. Go on Instagram, look up like life coaches, business coaches, same with Facebook, and just look. It doesn't take long to get an idea, like you get that first like hit of yes, oh, like you want to keep going or not. It really shouldn't be a drawn out process where you research and you like go too crazy. It should be like really noticing that immediate feeling that you get and trusting that. And then most coaches will offer a free consult.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So I offer free consults still. So it's an easy way to get into someone's world for 45 minutes to an hour and see if you connect. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that part because I almost forgot that we did have a consultation before. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because that definitely helps you kind of figure out if your energy attracts, or if if the goals, like maybe not the goals, but like their process of the goals align and everything. So that's true.
Yeah, especially if it's your first coach, that's how you would do it. Like now I don't really need that. Now if I see someone online or I see their energy, I'm like, I want to work with that person. I don't really need a drawn out consult because I just know. But for your first coach, definitely it will feel easier to have that consult. Yeah.
And so I know that for your program, you offer I think it was like a couple of options, but I guess the question would be, how long do you offer your coaching? Like, is it like a month's thing, a week's thing? How do you work?
Well, I think when we coached together, it was every other week for 3 months, maybe. Was that it?
I think so, yeah.
So I've since changed that, and now I coach for 6 months weekly
Oh,
with with a messaging support in between. I find that that gets my clients the fastest results. And then I had 6 clients in January renew to another 6 months. So, and that's not because they're not seeing results, it's because they're seeing results and they want to keep going
yeah.
and moving forward. So it's working.
So like, don't go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Keep
We
going,
need.
keep rising.
Oh, that's awesome to hear about your what you're doing and how you're doing. Um, and then I guess just advice in general. What advice could you, or not could you? You have a lot of advice. What advice would you give in general?
Whoa, in general advice. Well, it's going to be something to do with going after that little tiny spark that might feel like nothing, that might feel insignificant, that might feel like you don't have that time right now, that might feel like, we're in a pandemic, the economy is
Yeah,
bad, I'll wait until my kids get older, I'll wait, and to decide to just jump in and do it. And literally, there's nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. Yeah.
yeah. I actually, that's actually a good point about right now. Right now, mental health specifically is so apparent. Is that the word? Apparent with the way things are going. So I feel like people are kind of like, oh no, I'm scared to, maybe go after something because everything's so high and like,
Yeah, everything just feels so like vulnerable, right?
yes,
So yeah, it is. But those are the times that's going to put that person ahead, because the majority of the people aren't going to do anything right now. Like the majority of the people are waiting till things get better. And what I'm seeing are the people that are like saying yes now. They're going to be that in that next level.
yeah. And I've always learned through, I think, life experiences and even with coaching or not coaching. I'm not the coach and you were the coach, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what to call it with us, but like we'll just say the paths together here, the energy. I've always noticed that there's never a good time. Like there really isn't. And it's kind of an excuse.
Yeah.
I've used that a lot. Like, oh, I can't do this because it's bad timing. But it, I
Yeah.
don't, I don't think that's true. I think that now is the time to start. Like, so I guess if someone is in this position today and feeling that they're like, oh, I don't know if I should start with all this chaos. I started a podcast and I'm rolling with it.
And people are doing things right now and succeeding. A lot of
Yeah.
people, and then I would say to that person that we're talking to, that
Yes.
the mystery person, like, go look for evidence of the people that are moving forward and doing what they're doing right now, and you will find proof.
Yes. Well, I think that's very helpful. And thank you for helping that mystery person. um, so, for the listeners, if they're looking to be a part of your program or even to just follow your journey and path, what are the platforms that you have that they can find you?
regularly on Instagram at Carly Hamilton Jones. That's it. No
Okay.
punctuation in the middle, Carly Hamilton Jones. Or they can go to my website, carlyhamiltonjones.com, and I'm on Facebook, Carly Hamilton Jones.
Perfect. We can find you anywhere. And I'll also tag that in this episode, or not this episode, but you know what I'm saying. I'll tag that so they can find you as well. Because, I mean, we could talk for hours about all the amazing things, but I think the biggest thing to do in the moment is to start. And a life coach and business coach is amazing for accountability, but even showing us things, and I'm coming from the perspective of going into this before, showing us things that we didn't think of or see, like you were saying. Like, I remember a lot of things. I was like, wait, what? And you'd think it'd be so obvious, but I don't know.
It's not. Yes,
Oh,
exactly it.
oh, perfect. It's been so fun talking to you again, and I hope you do come on the podcast again. Um,
Yeah.
and if you do start a podcast, let us know.
I will. Thank you so much. It was so great to catch up. I love this.
Yes,
Thank you for asking me.
yes, thank you for coming. And before I go, I just wanted to do our affirmations. So if you'd like to pick a number between 1 and 3, and then I'll read them. So if you choose group 1 or number 1, your affirmation is that my possibilities are endless. And I should repeat that. My possibilities are endless. I messed up the word for a second. And then for anyone that chose number 2 or group 2, I am becoming more confident every day. And then for those of you that chose number 3 or group 3, I have beautiful qualities to offer this world. And with that, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and I am proud of you. Until next time on the Brie Pod.